Good morning, Guy Gordon, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. I appreciate the likes, the shares, and subscribe. That helps me out a lot, and that helps this channel a lot. Helps me to continue to do what I do to entertain and hopefully educate in some small way. I want to talk about growing up. I was probably 16 at the time, and I was talking with my parents, and I asked them, I said, "How did you guys meet?" Because that was never really talked about in the family. And let me first start by saying my grandparents on my mom's side were very, very religious. Very religious. I'm not sure about my grandparents on my father's side. I really didn't, as far as I know, I don't remember ever seeing them. I do remember my grandmother on my mom's side one time. I was about 5 or 6 years old. But anyhow, my dad was what they called a tent preacher. And these were guys that would sometimes have a tent, probably not very big, but they would have one, or it'd be in a barn. And what they would do is they would preach. And a lot of times they do it for the money because, money was scarce back then. Um, my mom and dad happened to go to the same church. My mom was 16 at the time. My dad was 22. And they kind of took a shine to each other, I guess. And my grandmother was very protective of my mother. But because my dad held these tent meetings, she would allow my dad to come over and sit with my mother as a date. You weren't allowed to go out. Well, you didn't have the money to go out, but even if you probably did, they wouldn't let you take their daughter out nowhere. So my grandmother had a dating chair, a calling chair. What it was a one chair. It was one chair. Uh, the one person would sit and like face this way. The other person would sit and face that way, and you had a little bit of a space between them. And that was a dating chair. When that was my grandmother's, her mom, my great grandmother's chair. When my grandmother was dating my grandfather, that's what they had to use. So my grandmother kept that chair, probably knowing that this day would come. And he could come over, he said, and spend 20 minutes. And then, he'd go back to his parents. He was living with his parents. And if he wanted to call on my mom, I just love the words they used back then, go calling. When I called on my mom, uh, they had to get word to my grandmother, can I come over this day at this time? And then I'm not sure how that dynamic worked out, but anyhow, that's the way it was. They really kind of start liking my dad when mine. It wasn't long, really, maybe 8 months, 9 months. Um, my dad proposed to my mother, and of course, first he had to go and uh, ask the parents. He had to get their permission, and he didn't say there was a problem. I don't. I don't really remember anything of him saying, he had to prove himself or nothing. I think he already did by going to church and then preaching in these tents or barns. But my mom was 16, my dad was 22 when they got married. And things were so tight financially, my dad used these rings on these cigars, and that's what he used to marry my mom. So they got married. My grandmother, on my mother's side, strongly suggested they would, well, I guess it was the agreement. Okay, you can get married, but you have to live with us. My grandma and grandpa on my mom's side. So they agreed. My mom and dad got married, and the wedding night, or the wedding came, and then that night, well, my dad was putting the moves on my mom, and she ran out of the bedroom crying into her mother's bedroom. And then that's when her mom told her what happens. And, they were so religious that talk never happened. Now I don't know if they had. I know that back in those days they still had prostitutes. That's how a lot of the women uh, lived financially. I don't know if they had Playboy. I don't think they had Playboy, but I don't think there was any printed paper or something like that of like Playboy or something. But I thought that was pretty interesting how my mom and dad met and how strict back then things were. Now, boy, it's a free for all. But I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I want to thank you for your likes, share, and when you subscribe, because it really helps this channel grow. And I enjoy this. I'm retired. I'm 69. I'm not looking to get monetized. If it happens, it happens. It's not a big deal. I have a little side hustle, but I do that I really enjoy because I like getting out and meeting people. But I do this to help people. I also talk about the VA and things that concerning veteran, my life growing up poor and my time in the Army, South Korea. And I just hope I could help people and maybe educate a little bit. So if you would please like and share this video and subscribe. And if you would, I would really love to hear your comments. Comment on the bottom about how your parents met, maybe how you met your significant other. I met my significant other in church. That's how we met. I want to let you in on a little something too about that. I was a deacon in the church, and I met this girl. Her parents went to church. I knew her parents, and we were good friends. But she didn't go to church because her husband wouldn't let her, or something like that. Anyhow, they got divorced. And when you're in love, you know it. Okay? I remember my alarm clock going off, and it was a radio alarm clock, on a station. And the song that played was I Just Called to Say I Love You. And I was laying there, and that's when I knew I was in love with my wife. I was madly in love with her. And the job I had, I worked in a warehouse at that time. It was a furniture warehouse. And we weren't allowed, well, we didn't have cell phones. But we had a date that night, and I couldn't wait to get there to tell her that I loved her. So I just thought I'd bring that up. Please comment on the bottom. I would really love to hear from you. Again, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.